So let's talk about feedback. Who loves to get feedback? I love that. A lot of people that love to get feedback. Unfortunately, feedback has picked a pretty bad rap. If you're getting feedback, a lot of people think it's because you did something wrong. You're broken and I have to fix you by giving you some feedback that's gonna make you better. So like in the context of being an entrepreneur and actually just like in the context of life, like we need to flip this on its head. Feedback is a positive. Feedback is learning. Feedback is growth. So when you're getting feedback, you don't have to agree with everything that's being said, but flexible thinkers, like we just saw, are open to feedback and look for the learning opportunity in it. So, one of the reasons why we don't love feedback is because it feels like evaluation, but actually evaluation is only one of the 3 kinds of feedback. And it might be actually the least important, especially in this context. So there are 3 kinds of feedback, and they're appreciation, evaluation, and then coaching. So let's talk about appreciation first. Appreciation is feedback, right? And you should just hand it out. Just give it out like candy. In fact, give it out more than candy. It's better for you than candy. So, when people are doing things around you, that are helpful, like notice them, right? Just show people that you notice them and care. I'm not talking about like the culture of giving everyone a trophy. I'm just talking about the culture of we're all working really hard. Let's take a minute and just thank each other and acknowledge, right? That feels really good. It's not evaluative. It's just saying thank you. You should also be doing evaluation on a regular basis with your team. People should have a defined job description and goals that they need to meet, and you're going to want to check in every once in a while, 3 months or 6 months against those goals and kind of track and see how people are doing. But what I'm talking about now is like the kind of feedback that sort of happens on a daily basis that's just meant for growth. It's not evaluative and it's not pure appreciation, it's coaching and growth feedback. So how do you become great at getting and giving feedback? So one of the ways is you ask for it, right? The best kind of feedback is the kind of feedback that you asked for. What did I do well in that meeting that we just got out of? Like what didn't go so well? Ask someone for feedback right in the moment and then you'll be able to incorporate it right away. But make sure you're ready. So if you're feeling triggered or you're feeling a little upset or off, not a great time to get feedback. When you're getting feedback, practice active listening. So you're not going to argue, you're not going to speak. Don't question the content, question for understanding. So remember that it's hard to give feedback. So like have some empathy for the person who you've asked for the feedback, because that's a difficult place for them to be. And remember also, this is an exchange. So it's not like you've asked me for feedback, I'm telling and you're listening. We're having a conversation. Then you might check for understanding. So what I'm hearing you say is that you didn't think that I handled the market sizing question well, that you thought that my answer sounded defensive, right? You want to check and make sure that what the other person said is the same as what you heard. Once you're pretty sure you're clear on what the feedback was, say thank you, accept it, and go away. You can decide later what you're going to do about it and how you're going to address it. And it may take a while for it to sink in. And then on the flip side, when you're giving feedback, before you give it, make sure the person that you're going to give it to actually wants it. I noticed something in there I'd like to share with you. Is this a good time for us to talk about that? Right? And when you're giving someone feedback, you don't want to, you want to share your observations as opposed to your judgment. Right? So you want to really stay with, this is what I saw, this is what I observed, this is what I noticed. It's up to the person getting the feedback to make the interpretation. You don't want the feedback to come across as, you should be more like this, you should be more like that. You just want to share what you observed and let them learn from it. So if you've got trouble with feedback, practice. Like I think it's great to practice on things that are not very loaded. Ask for feedback on, how your presentation skills were, or how your meeting agenda was, or something that's kind of not very deep and personal. If there's certain people you don't want to get feedback from because they just trigger you, that is totally fine. If there are certain topics that are off the table, that is also totally fine. You should work to expand on it. Like, again, back to that whole idea of like expanding the boxes and reducing your blind spot. Like the more feedback you get, the smaller your blind spot's going to get. Some people like to have mantras. Like I know someone who actually repeats in his head before he gets feedback is growth, feedback is growth, feedback is growth. So that he can kind of like calm himself down so that he can hear what's being said. Whatever is your trick for managing it, just look for what's true, the 10% that's true. And if you don't like the rest, you don't have to take it. The truth is that high-performing entrepreneurs, teams, and cultures are all feedback seekers. So especially if you're leading at teams, the first step is for you to model asking for feedback and then also responding to feedback in a positive and a thankful way.